It's unconstitutional to have federal police roaming all over the United States, investigating crimes that are clearly only punishable at the state level and getting way out of their federal jurisdiction. But that really is only the tip of the iceberg. We've seen a continued federalization of local police through the federal funds. The federal government takes money from the state, then sends part of it back to the state with strings attached, and we now know that they're not just putting federal police in with local police departments. Via the threat integration centers that have been built in the last decade, they're also moving regular Army, National Guard, and of course FBI and CIA into these centers that are spying on the American people without warrants. Now they're integrating that with the National Security Agency through the Cyber Security Act, and Obama's first cybersecurity czar resigned, saying that this was an Orwellian takeover that violates the Fourth Amendment. That said, Barack Obama has now signed Executive Order 12,425, and this gives diplomatic immunity to agents of Interpol, the international police organization that originally started in Europe and has now grown to a planetary operation. You've all seen reported in the news the famous cases of UN diplomats beating people up, raping people, killing people, bringing drugs into the country, bringing laundered money into the country, running over people on the streets of New York, and the police are powerless to even stop them or question them, much less arrest them. And so now to have Interpol, this agent of the European Union, getting diplomatic immunity inside the United States, this makes them above the law, and it's just a serious expansion of unconstitutional tyranny. And for those that are in denial about this, I wanted to show you just FEMA's own press release from earlier in 2009, and this was National Level Exercise 09, scheduled from July 27th through July 31st, and they say here in their own press release, just Google NLE09, first thing that comes up is FEMA's own press release. You can go to their site and read more. This is just one of their posts. And it says that troops from 14 different countries are training with federal, regional, state, tribal, and local private sector participants with police and military from foreign countries on how to take on terrorists inside the United States and how to surveil the American people. And I also saw new reports this week out about Israeli police and Israeli military. This was in the Jerusalem Post, of all places, being liaisons in Homeland Security and working with the U.S. military, quote, for missions inside the United States. And the article from the Jerusalem Post says that they're going to assist and work with the military to, quote, fight terrorists inside the United States. This is all just completely unconstitutional. And I've read the Army War College reports. They've signed agreements with Canada and Mexico in the last 8 years to, quote, use foreign assets inside the United States during crises, during terrorist attacks, or during civil insurrection. And of course, now in the last year and a half, the Pentagon has put out reports in the Army Times saying, yeah, we want to put 379,000 troops made up of different brigades as part of Brigade Homeland to deal with terrorists. And then, of course, in early 2009, we broke, via law enforcement sources that gave it to us, the MIAC report and the Homeland Security report, where they admit that their main threat, the main group that Homeland Security has been set up and Northcom has been set up to counter, is gun owners, veterans, libertarians, of course, returning veterans as well, and of course, people that want to, quote, end the private Federal Reserve. And it's come out in major newspapers that in the Fed protests and Tea Parties are being surveilled by the U.S. Army as potential terrorists. So it was a bait and switch. You were told Homeland Security and Northcom were four shadowy men in caves in Afghanistan that attacked you. And when you actually get the internal documents, it's all about you, the American people, that don't want to go along with foreign offshore banks engaging in a private corporate takeover and looting of the United States. So just amazing things that are happening where foreign paramilitary police from Interpol and troops from foreign nations are training to take on the American people and have been given diplomatic immunity, literal above the law immunity. This is an absolute outrage, and this is the global corporate state giving its hired minions and goons and thugs literal godlike status, while the American people's basic constitutional rights are being decimated and being completely demolished. We'll continue to cover this information throughout Christmas and into the new year. The last decade, from 2000 to 2010, has been a nightmare for free peoples everywhere. A shroud of tyranny, an iron curtain of corruption is descending upon the planet. It comes in the guise of the left and the right, and it must be resisted. But I do hope that all of you do have a happy and healthy and safe holiday coming up with Christmas. I know that at the Copenhagen Summit, Christmas trees were banned, and in most public schools and government buildings, Christmas is banned as they train the public that we don't have any free speech or any rights in this country, and as our culture that's made this country so great is being dismantled.